is Simon at Mr. and Mrs. Know How. How's life treating you today? Well, should I be saying, how are you treating life today? Because this particular info reel is all about us taking responsibility for our lives. Whether it was for today, whether it was yesterday, whether it's going to be for tomorrow. Because let's face it, in the end, a lot of us don't like to take responsibility for what's going on in our lives, don't like taking responsibility for ourselves. I mean, it's a bit like me saying, I've got no control over my hair today, and it's my hair's fault, and that's the way it grows. But really, it's down to the fact of how often I actually wash it, whether I comb it or not, whether I go to the barber and have it styled or not. And actually, it's a bit of a mess this morning, so I can't really blame anyone else or anything else other than it's my fault. So this info reel today isn't going to be a step-by-step guide about how to take responsibility. Pure and simply, it's going to be about taking responsibility and the benefits of taking responsibility. Managing your life, not allowing life to manage you. Because in the end, let's face it, a lot of us don't like taking responsibility because it implies so many things. It implies that we are at fault, we may have made a mistake. But if you turn it around and say, well, actually taking responsibility empowers me, it allows me to enjoy what I'm doing. It gives me permission, I'm giving myself permission to enjoy my life. Then you'll start thinking differently. How many of you can think about a situation in which you didn't actually take responsibility for what was going on? How did that make you feel? And on another occasion, you actually took responsibility for what was happening. You took responsibility for what you were doing and why. And how did that make you feel as well? Did it make you feel totally different to the situation or to the time when you didn't take responsibility? I remember, let me give you an example, a really silly one. Say, for instance, my hair, as I was saying before. Now, with my hair being a mess as it is now, I feel as if I have to justify myself to you, the viewers, why it looks like this. It doesn't actually make me feel very good. That's why I'm having to excuse myself. But if I'm to take care of myself, if, for instance, I was very, very pleased with the way my hair was looking, I would be confident, I would feel assertive, I would be making a statement saying, this is me, this is who I am, instead of making lame excuses, which I did earlier, about why I look the way I do now. It's really easy. It's so easy. I want to hear you say it to yourselves. It's easy for us to take the path of least resistance. I used to be like that all the time. It was somebody else's fault. I have no control over what's going on. This is something that's far beyond me. I can't do anything about it. I can't influence what's happening to me. It's so easy to do that because you could blame everyone else. It's not your fault. You can get angry with people. You can get really pissed off with people. And that makes you feel better. But do you really want things to happen to you instead of you making things happen? Isn't that one of the biggest obstructions to having a successful life? That we allow things to happen to us. We float through life. We have no real ambition, no real intention or purpose in doing anything different, especially for ourselves or for the people we supposedly love. Even though changing what we do will make our lives better. Are you the person who allows things to happen to you? You want to keep the peace. That's understandable. You want to keep the status quo, but you don't want to ruffle feathers. You just want to be able to get through the day and not have any hassle or get upset or be stressed or be anxious about anything. Or Are you a person who actually does fight for yourself, who fights for your corner, represents yourself, won't allow anyone else to really control you, to define what's happening to you? But you also say that really you can't change anything. It's not your fault. Is there really any difference to that? Because ultimately, on both cases, we're not really taking responsibility for what's going on. We're allowing things to happen to us, and we're reacting to it in different ways, but we're not really taking control of what's going on. And here's the thing, for me anyway, if we live our lives like that, have we got any excuses? Can we really complain about what's happening to us? I'm not sure we can. Because if we're allowing things to happen to us, whether it's our actions, whether it's our response to things, if we're allowing things to happen to us, if we're allowing life to kick us in the teeth, can we really complain? Have we got any right to complain? How can we justify what's happening? I mean, if we're going to lay blame and fault on other people's doorsteps, what right have we got to complain? Although I'm sure a lot of people out there do. Do you complain? When really, you shouldn't be complaining. You should be doing. We have to be masters of our own destiny. But most of the time, we don't do this. We do the complete opposite. Because we can't admit to taking responsibility. And then we get disappointed without realising that it was our fault. I'm not going to pussyfoot around with words and be kind and be clever with semantics. If it's your fault, it's your fault. Take responsibility for what's going on. Have you ever wondered why you feel the way that you do? If we don't take responsibility for what's happening to ourselves, then we can start feeling in ways that we can't quite comprehend. We can't quite understand why we're feeling that way. We don't know where this depression is coming from. We don't truly know why we're stressed out. It could be for reasons that aren't the real reasons. We're very tired, we're fatigued. We can't feel satisfied with our work, with our relationships, in our marriage, with what's happening to our children, our relationship with our children. We're fed up that we can't take time out, that we can't have holidays. And yet, we still don't really know why this is happening to us. But instead of looking for positive change, instead of finding the right reasons for what's going on, we turn towards the quick fix, the short-term, exciting shock of making us feel better. And that leads to an ever-decreasing circle of options. We can't find a way out. We're trapped into possibly addictive, compulsive or obsessive behaviour. And we get depressed. And we start doing things we never ever thought we would do. I'd like to share with you, if I may, certain times in my life I really hated everyone. I hated my school. I hated my teachers. I hated my parents. I hated everyone. I hated my friends, if I could call them friends. I hated people on the street. I didn't know them. hated them. I hated society. I hated the politicians. I hated the system. I hated money. I didn't hate myself. Although not knowingly. But that is the person I mostly hated. I detested myself. I hated the way I looked. I couldn't stand the way I felt. I was so angry, so pent up. All these feelings that I just could not let out, because I knew that if I let out these feelings, I'd hurt someone. I'd kill someone. I didn't know where they all came from. I didn't know who to direct it to. I didn't know how to ask for help, because I thought everything about me was wrong. But it wasn't my fault. It was someone else's fault. I used to be at home when I can remember most distinctly when I was 8, 9 years old. And I used to be in the front room all on my own. I used to stamp up and down, silently shouting and screaming, trying to control how I was feeling, but also wanting to let it out. It was like all the humours in the world, air, fire, water, earth, it was all battling inside me to get out, because I was so inhibited. I needed to control what was going on, but not in a healthy way, because I didn't understand it. But it was my parents' fault. It was my parents' fault. It was the way that they treated me. It was the way that they ignored me. It was the way that they loved me. It was the way that they angered me and pissed me off. It was their fault. It wasn't mine. And that's how I lived most of my teenage and adult life. I was the proverbial wolf that barked at the moon. The only times where I took responsibility is when something good happened. I never used to take responsibility for the bad things, the negative things that I was feeling or what happened to me. There was always something going on at work. It was the stress of work. I drank because I had to have a safety valve, not because I had a problem with alcohol. I went out and was promiscuous. I had sex outside of my relationship. But it wasn't my fault. It was my partner's fault at the time. She didn't care for me. She didn't love me. She didn't make me feel good. She wasn't sexy enough for me. Everything was somebody else's fault. Until it got to a point where something had to give. I exploded through out-of-control behaviour. And it wasn't until I actually had to, I was forced to, for my own health, for my own mental health, for my own physical health, to actually come to an awareness and a conclusion that if I continued the way I did, if I didn't take responsibility for what was going on in my life, for my life would end. I had to see it. I had to acknowledge it. It wasn't until I was 50 years old that I came to this conclusion. We don't want that to happen to you. We don't want it to take so long for anyone else to realise that once they take responsibility for their own life, for what's going on in their life and for how they're mismanaging their life, that everything will turn around. You'll start feeling less tense, less anxious. You won't have anything to hide. more positive things will happen to you. But the first thing you have to do is to admit that maybe this isn't what you've been doing. We don't want that to happen to you. So I can quite happily admit to you, to everyone, I have no shame about it. I've got nothing to hide. In fact, quite the reverse. The more I'm honest about what things went on in my life, the more truthful I am, and to everyone else, the more responsibility I take for what's happening inside me, the less shame I have, the less guilt. I don't feel sorry for myself. Because in the end, I have the power to manage my life. Even when things go not the way I want them to, the way I respond to them, what action I take because of them, I do have control over. The reason why I can share with you things that have happened in my life, because I've taken responsibility for what happened. I've taken responsibility for changing. I've taken responsibility for how I am now. And I'm enjoying my life because of it. We've been down this road. I know how it feels. It took time. It took a lot of self-help. It took a lot of support for me to change. But in the end, by taking affirmative, decisive action, and it was massive, I had to do it, I changed my mindset. I changed my behaviour. And I got out of the hellhole that in the end I created. And this is what we want for you. We don't want you to have to go through your own hell in order to achieve what it is you want to achieve, to live a life that you're happy with, to get the goals that you want to get. We don't want you to suffer. And that's why we're sharing this with you. To take responsibility for your life and for what happens to you is probably the first step to change. So, if you've liked what you've heard, click on the button below, subscribe, and do remember that if you want to learn now, you need to know how.